All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Campaign Basics, hosted by CD6. I'll be your host for the evening. For those who don't know me, I'm Chantel Oxley, and I'm the chair of CD6. I've been in this role since May of this last year, and the big thing I wanted to bring into this role was someone who had campaign experience and could kind of bridge that gap between the party apparatus, the candidates, and kind of the campaign machine, if you will. So the goal of this evening is to hopefully try to demystify that, both for ca new candidates as well as new volunteers who just want to get involved and understand the world's on fire right now. So if you want to go ahead, as I had talked with folks prior, if you haven't stuck an intro in the chat yet, let us know where you're from and what you're hoping to get out of this meeting. Otherwise, we're going to hop right into it. Feel free to take down questions. We will answer those at the end. We're just going to info dump a bunch on the front so that people watching this later can get an overview, and then we'll answer questions one-on-one once we're done. So the first role that I want to talk about is what it's like to be a candidate. Whether so to help us through that this evening is Betsy O'Barry as well as Joe Barata, who are going to talk about their experiences. Betsy, go ahead if you want to go first.
Okay, well, I was thinking about this, and I have run for state representative in 1996, in 2002, when my son was two, and I missed the whole summer he was two and decided not to do it until later. So then again in 2022. And I would say that some of the best advice that I got about being a candidate came from former Senator Alice Johnson, who's no longer with us. But she said when I first jumped into my first race, you're on the roller coaster now. And I think it's really important to know as a candidate up front that your emotions are going to be way up and way down. And it's going to, when you have a really good day, think about the fact that this is a good day, but you're going to not have good days. And when you have a really bad day, just think about the fact that you're on the roller coaster and you're going to be fine. The other thing that I wanted to mention was some advice that I got from Mary McAvoy, who's the former vice chair of our party, who was in the plane with Paul Wellstone and when it went down. And she had said to me, you schedule time for your campaign. And you know how much time you have to give to it, with your work responsibilities and other responsibilities, but also make sure that you schedule downtime. Because if you don't schedule downtime, you're going to take downtime and it will not be at the appropriate time. You want to make sure that you do the work, you hit it hard, and then Saturday night's off or whatever it is that's your downtime, make sure you schedule that. In terms of time commitments, I know that came up, and in a lot of our races, it really depends on what you are willing to give. If you're in a purple district, you're gonna have to really work. Some of the people in the blue districts I noticed don't work that hard. But even in a red district, I always worked really hard and door knocked, and you can outperform the DFL index, and that moves everybody forward. So that's my advice. Joe, why don't you go ahead?
Um, Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Barata. I'm the CD6 Outreach and Inclusion Officer and Field Staff for the Minnesota AFL-CIO. I was a DFL state candidate in 2020, and I am running for City Council in St. Cloud this year. I'll focus on the prior race as this one's not about now. It was something that Lori Aho said to me, which was, plan, plan to lose, prepare to win. Simply put, don't do anything rash. Because firstly, if you get your job, they don't pay anywhere near what you think they do. So if you put yourself in massive debt and you get to the legislature or wherever you're running, congratulations, you're still in massive debt. Don't ruin your relationships. Keep your family in check. These are very important. Specific to the race I'm running now, the very first person I cleared it with is my wife behind me. Um, Keep these things there because if you on the note of I live in a purple district, flip that coin. I may win, I may not, even as hard as I try. Don't burn those bridges just for the chance to lose. On the personal side, the highs are amazing when you go to the big events, the big galas, the dinners, and you get to shake hands with all sorts of high up people. That's great. I would also prepare yourself for some very big lows, kind of like what Betsy was saying. It's very betraying when you see people you thought you could trust just turn your back on you for your opponent. And then when the dust settles and the ballots are over, well, that's just the game. And they go right back to sitting next to you in that very next CC meeting or that very next city council or whatever you're doing. Um, People you trust will betray you. It hurts. Uh, but I would just get used to it. I don't think anybody, Amy Klobuchar has probably been burned more than anybody else. But look, if you stick it out and things go your way, you can achieve it. Um, but those would be my major ones. Just to try to keep it brief is don't do brash decisions. Don't max out your credit cards is the biggest one. Don't touch those credit cards. Door knock can get that fundraising money. Don't touch your credit cards because that debt will be your debt after November, win or lose. Um, and with that, I'll just return the mic if there's nothing else for questions, I guess.
Yeah, no, thank you, Joe. And of course, the candidate might be the face of the campaign, but those of us who have been in the know understand that it takes an entire strong and dedicated team behind them to help ensure success. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Kylie Erickson, who's going to talk about what it takes to be a campaign manager and who might be a really good person to take up that role.
Hi, my name is Kylie. Apologize if there's any sound or the lighting isn't great. I am on my way back from the city, so I stopped at a Panera to take this. My name is Kylie. I'm just going to give a little bit of background experience of me and what I've done in campaigns before. So in 2022, I was a canvasser for the House DFL caucus, and then in 2024, I was a field organizer for the House DFL caucus, and then I've come back all the way around to being the North Regional Field Director, and then taking the field director hat off. I was the campaign manager. He's actually on here for Lewis McNutt, who ran for Senate in the special election, and then I also have done campaign management for Dan Wolgamott, who's running for state auditor. I think the biggest thing that you need to do as a campaign manager is to ensure that your candidate can focus on the most important things that they need to do. So I would say when it comes to being a candidate, you want to make sure that they're building community, they're knocking on doors, and that they're fundraising, that they're making, fundraising calls, and everything else that they need to get done, or that the campaign needs to get done to make sure that you're building that community, you're knocking on those doors, you're making those fundraising calls, the responsibility falls on you. Because your candidate, they really need to be focused on the most important parts of the campaign. So whatever you can take off their hands, whether that's, checking their email inbox, helping them with their calendar, making sure that you can even, do their questionnaires, and then, of course they'll have final approval. But really the job of a campaign manager is ensuring that you're doing all the other work that a campaign needs to do that the candidate's not doing. I don't really have anything else than that. It really depends on the candidate, what they need, and what the campaign needs of what your responsibilities will be. But I'll put my phone number in here. It's important to have people by your side that you can always go to for questions. I used to say answer all my calls, and that's not so true anymore because I have a lot of meetings and interviews right now. But if you call me and leave a message or text me, I will get back to you. And yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you, Kylie, so much for pulling off the road to help us out tonight. I really appreciate it. And so that being said, of course, a campaign manager can't do all the things by themselves. And so the next role we're going to do an overview of is treasurer. So I'm going to have Buzz Snyder give us some sagely advice. Over the years, he's done a lot of treasurer work, both in legislative races all the way up to running a statewide campaign now as well. So I'm sure it'll be an delightful moment. Thank you.
Okay,
You're
now?
you're unmuted now.
Okay. Yeah, Buzz Snyder, Sauk Rapids. I was district chair for 13, back when, so long it was 14 back when I was chair, about 12 years. But yeah, I got sucked into this treasurer duty, I don't know, about 7 or 8, more than that, 10 years ago. I think I treasured for about 8 legislative campaigns, and now I'm trying to stay out of jail with a statewide campaign, but we'll see what happens. Don't believe anybody who says it's a treasurer who goes to jail, because in Watergate, it was campaign manager John Mitchell who went to jail, not the treasurer Maurice Stans. So uh, anyway, I want to. I guess what I would say mostly about treasurer duties is the Campaign Finance Board for the state of Minnesota, which is at cfb.min.gov, is probably one of the most useful and user-friendly websites you can find in terms of help from any state agency. It's really improved in recent cycles. It's now got a campaign finance reporter online, or they call it CFRO, which is the method by which treasurers can enter all transactions, receipts and disbursements, or contributions and expenses, as if you wish. Uh, they have excellent menu of for any new treasurer. I would recommend going to Filer Resources right away. There's self-help online videos there, a candidate handbook, presuming you're treasurer for perhaps a legislative candidate, and you can download that to PDF or even print it out the handbook if you want. But if you go through it, I would suggest that a new treasurer probably invest 2 to 3 hours at least on that website with some of the short, really 2 to 3 minute online videos. Try to do them in sequence if possible, so you don't get ahead of yourself. But the contact us part avails you of the staff there. I've had a number of occasions to call the staff for clarification or advice, or to make sure I'm doing things right, or before I do them wrong, or to correct something I've done wrong. And they're all uniform. All my experiences have been uniformly excellent, professional, and pleasant. So don't ever be afraid to call them or email them for any concerns. They'll help you out. They're not looking to put anybody in jail. They're not looking to fine any campaigns. That's not what they're about. They want to make everybody successful in terms of money management and compliance with the campaign finance laws. Particularly, I'm impressed by Melissa Stevens. She's the compliance officer there. If in doubt, she's the one who called. The contact list of the, I think, 6 or 8 main officers of the Campaign Finance Board are right there on the website, and they even tell you which one to call for a particular kind of problem, and they'll hand you off to someone else if they're not available. So I can't say enough about the Campaign Finance Board online resource. The other thing to keep in mind, if you're a new treasurer, particularly if you're coming in this year with endorsed candidates, is be aware of the political contribution refund program, the requirements to enroll in that, what the requirements to comply with it, the requirements to be eligible for the campaign subsidy if you choose to take it, or unless you're self-financing. So, but all those items are readily available. There's even position papers there. So, and as others have said, if you have any questions, feel free to call someone else you might know who's an experienced or had gone through it a little bit in past treasurer duties, and they'll help you out. Can't think of anything else right now. That's a kind of a summary, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Buzz. Malik, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I'm a new treasurer. This is my first campaign being a treasurer, and so the other things to think about, like filing the paperwork for the committee, the treasurer is usually involved in that part too, and then setting up like your bank account and those types of things. As a new treasurer, I echo everything Buzz said. I watch those videos, and I still use that site for just double checking things. Um, you also need to think about a system to kind of set up. So for me on Sunday mornings, that's when I do most of my treasurer entries. So I enter everything, and I try to get stuff printed so that on Tuesday night when we have our campaign meeting, I can give the candidate everything. You're going to want to have some sort of system that works for you. I also have a home printer, and so important to be able to print out your PCR receipts, like Buzz said. I also would recommend that you get familiar with your printers, like printing labels or printing right on the envelopes. You're not going to want to handwrite everything. And then also talking through with your candidate, like if you're going to send thank you notes, do you want the candidate to write every thank you note? Do you want to have like he writes a bunch of them and you stuff those in the envelope? So there's lots of little process things that I think as a treasurer is helpful for you to be aware of. So again, you can make sure that the candidate is spending most of his time making the phone calls and not dealing with the paperwork. It's also very clear when your treasurer, when your candidate is making phone calls, because you start to see the donations come in, and truly at the end of the day, it is about volume on that. So I think that those things are all things as a new person that I sort of have learned along the way.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Just a gentle reminder, we'll be doing questions at the end. Other than Kylie, everyone plans on staying here, so they'll be here for the duration of the meet. Moving right along. I believe we're on to me at this point. Sure. Yes. So before I became chair of CD6, I was a paid volunteer coordinator for the Jeannie Hendricks congressional campaign, as well as a communications director for the Abdi Dasane campaign in 2024. So I'm going to talk about being a volunteer coordinator first. So being a volunteer coordinator, the specifics will vary campaign to campaign, but your big job is to coordinate all the volunteers, all the enthusiastic helping hands that want to help do any and all of the things, whether it be doing phone calls, knocking doors, having one-on-one conversations to kind of see what volunteers are interested in and how the campaign can invest in their volunteers. And so this job is incredibly people-y. You're going to want to make sure you're someone who can stay organized and manage your time, but also is willing and able to connect with people on a very personal level and is able to navigate interpersonal conflicts as they arise and is creative enough to see someone's strengths and weaknesses and plug them in somewhere that they're going to enjoy and that they're going to be very effective at. And so in my time with the Hendricks campaign, I had a spreadsheet of all of our volunteers and would connect with them. We had a very large field campaign throughout the 6th congressional district. So we would assign volunteers a very large list of doors. And so it was my job to help kind of navigate, are they doing their doors? What is their contact? Where do they need help? Do we need a list number refresh? And do we need to give them more lit and kind of it was my job to kind of articulate what do they need from the campaign to be successful in being engaged with the campaign. Generally at the legislative level, this is a volunteer role, but it can be a very fun one where you get to meet a lot of new friends and a lot of new faces. And as a communications director, on the other hand, you are you're the voice of the campaign. So when I was with the Dasane campaign, if you ever got a text message or an email from Abdi, I wrote it. And so it was my job to make sure that I was aware of the message of the campaign, the vision, the values, and to coordinate closely with the campaign manager as well as the candidate to make sure that we were adhering to that brand that he was trying to build. And campaign to campaign, that'll vary slightly, but of course you need to be professional, you need to be good at brevity and understand the power of the pencil. Often communication directors will also have access to social media. So if you're a digitally savvy person, this could also be a really good place for you as well. And those emphasis on brevity becomes particularly important, especially in the digital era. You know, how many times you see a post on Facebook, and if you have to click read more, you're not reading it, you're scrolling. You know, and just little skills like that are often very important for a communications director to have. Um, Other times you can see a communications director, like I said, with text messages, maybe it's video stuff, maybe you're collaborating with a candidate to help write speeches and to help give them ideas on how they want to take this idea they have in their head on policy and make it digestible for the average normie. And so it's one of those where you have to understand people, you have to understand rhetoric, and you have to be really good with words. And now to kind of pivot in a different direction, now that we have the campaign kind of solidified, is what other stakeholders are important in that campaign machine. So I'm going to pass it off to Jim Parsons, who is the chair of Senate District 14 out in St. Cloud, to talk about how the party apparatus engages with campaigns and what the use of engaging with the party is with for a campaign.
Sure, thanks, Chantel. Jim Parsons, Senate District 14, as Chantel said, chair. I'll put my contact info in the chat here soon, in case anybody has questions. A lot of the work of the party chair happens actually almost before the campaign starts. Answering questions, providing advice, that kind of stuff. But I'll skip over that because we're nearly April here and we've got to get rolling on our campaigns. But what I've just recently told all our campaigns is we can help with resources, basic stuff. There's spending limits on campaigns, and we can help those dollars go a little bit farther. Um, we have an office, so it's a little bit different for us than some other places. But miscellaneous office supplies, printing, um, durable resources. H stands for lawn signs, rebar for larger lawn signs, that kind of thing. Those last I checked, H stands were $1.25 each. Um, if you do 500 of them, all of a sudden that's a $600 plus expense for a campaign. That hits. Rebar, I haven't priced for a while, but if you do a lot of large campaign signs, that can run some money too. Um, Parades and events. We do a bunch of events and parades. Some events require entry fees. All parades, it seems, do. And we cover those. We provide tables um, where candidates can put their lit and use our table as a kind of a base point for going out and pressing the flesh, as it were, meeting all the people at various events, those kinds of things. Early in the campaign, and this, I know Sam's on the list, so I'm going to defer to him on a bunch, but helping with volunteers, at least at the start. That's really a campaign thing because you do need to develop your own volunteer group and that sort of stuff, but we can help you jumpstart it a little bit. Certainly amplified efforts for parade events, those kinds of things. I skipped on the parades. Not only entry fees, but candy. We spent over $1,000, I think it was last year on candy. It's getting more expensive. Um, and to be fair, candidates supplement that, but I think we provided, half, two-thirds of what everybody used. Um, Altogether, that's a fairly decent expense or savings for a campaign. Um, we do get hit up for money, and I always tell folks, yep, local party units can provide money. There's an upper limit of $10,000 that a candidate from all party resources, including the state DFL or the congressional district or operating unit together. But generally, ours have been between one and three, maybe sometimes up to $4,000 per candidate. And that probably depends on where you are and what you're trying to support in terms of candidates. We try to, in ST14, help out some of our nonpartisan folks to build a bench, and that requires at least some resources. We also can do some general advertising. We can't support individual candidates because that's a campaign expense for them. But we can do a general thing like vote DFL or get out the vote um, efforts where we list all, in our case, three candidates in our operating unit and say, please vote for all these guys. They're great, that kind of thing. But that's usually towards the end of the year. Um, and that's a fair amount. And if you have an office, you have a base of operations as well for meetings, a jump off point for door knocks, If it's big enough, we can do potluck and fundraising events there, that kind of thing. With that, think I'll turn it back to Chantel.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Just want to remind all the treasurers and for the treasurers in the room that you should document in-kind contributions. The cool perk about party units is that if they support three or more candidates, it then doesn't count as an in-kind contribution toward a spending limit. Just a little mechanical clarification so the treasurers in the room will not scream. Moving forward, I also have Sam online, who is our field organizer for CD6, to talk about how the paid staff often engage with campaigns.
Awesome. Thanks, Chantel. Really, really excited to be here. And it's so cool that we've brought so many different people from like all ends of the campaign world together. It kind of feels like we're getting the band back together as we're starting to gallop ahead towards the midterms here. So my name's Sam Brewer. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the CD6 DFL Regional Organizing Director for the Coordinated Campaign, which I'll talk about here in just a second what that means. First of all, I apologize if I sound a little bit raspy. It was a long weekend at No Kings. I am trying to kick a cold. So, yeah, hopefully after this I can get some tea and honey and be on my merry way. But so a big part of what field organizers are, if I could sum it up in sort of one word, is really field organizers are the conduit that connects the party with our campaigns and our local party units. And when I say the party, I mean capital P party, sort of the folks in St. Paul. So field organizers, by and large, are paid party staffers. The bulk of us work for, here in Minnesota, the bulk of us work for the DFL. The DFL, as we think of it, without getting too sort of into the weeds here, is really actually three separate organizations. So we have our House and Senate caucus, who exists to support primarily our state House and state Senate candidates. They have their own organizing teams, their own field teams, that really, are focused on supporting those candidates specifically. And then we also have our coordinated campaign, which is what I work for. And the coordinated campaign exists largely to support all of our races up and down the ballot, state and federal level, and to a lesser extent, also assisting with our state House and state Senate races. So really, and there's a lot more details to that, but what that means is there can be a lot of different people in your office floating around. And sometimes they can have slightly different titles, but by and large, field organizers, really what we do is there's kind of, I'd say, two major roles that a field organizer plays. And the first one is we are the boots on the ground. We are the folks who are knocking doors. We're the folks who are making those phone calls, and really, trying to get folks motivated and excited for the midterms. And along with that, a big part of what we do is we're trying to build up that volunteer capacity, especially early on. Hand in hand with some of our campaign managers, with our party leaders, we're trying to build some of those relationships. So I was a part of our community organizing program this past year during the off year. So lots of familiar faces on this call. I know I've met with many of you. This program was phenomenal. There were 10 of me across the state. And really what we were focused on is we realized that, after the 2024 election, our races had become very transactional. And really, the way that field teams have operated in the past is you get just a crap ton of organizers moving in. You staff up all these offices about 5 or 6 months before the election, but you're not really building relationships with the people who you're organizing. So the goal with this community organizing program was year-round organizing. So the hope is that we'll have organizers on the ground year-round across the state to be able to build some of those relationships and to be able to start to lay the groundwork so that when we do start to scale up and bring in the rest of our field team, which is actually happening as we speak. We have some organizers starting as soon as next week. We'll be able to, give them a nice bench so they're not running around trying to connect with all the key players, and hopefully we'll just be able to free up that much more space. So I think that's pretty much what we do as field organizers. Again, really just sort of the conduit between the party, the folks in St. Paul party, the local party units and our campaigns. And really, we kind of exist to mobilize and motivate folks to get out the vote.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. So we're actually way ahead of schedule. So if anyone has questions, feel free to raise your hand. I believe Paul Below had one earlier. Do you still have one?
I did, Chantel, thanks.
Yeah.
It was a treasurer question. So I did enjoy the remarks by Buzz and Malik. I'm also a treasurer. Um, one of the things that it's not really a question, but it was to follow on what Buzz said. When I first came on as a state rep treasurer, I took over campaign books that were a little messed up, and I realized we held a contribution that was in error of the rules, and actually it was a finable offense. We held it for more than 90 days, and I discovered it. So I called the CFB and I talked to their good folks, and I let them know about the problem. And I'm fully expecting we're going to get fined and have to remedy that. And they basically terminated the call by saying, "No, it's all good. You let us know. You're good. Just don't do it again." Anyway, it was just to kind of convey because I got that same vibe when I first came on, like, oh, you could go to jail. And Buzz, thank you for remedying that misconception because our local CFB, they really just want us to do the right thing. And I've called them dozens of times and they've given me always good advice. But that problem I had where we could have been fined $1,000 and they kind of were like, yeah, no, just don't do it again. That stuck with me. So if you're a new treasurer, don't feel reluctance. And then the other thing I wanted to put out is there are a lot of treasurers like me that we're a small tribe. So if you're new to it and you want advice, reach out to me too. So any of us, you can find all of our contact info on the CFB website, but we're all willing to help. Anyway, thank you, Chantel, for doing this and let me throw in my 2 cents.
Yeah, of course. No, I greatly appreciate it because that's always been what I've heard from my treasurer friends as well. I've been a vice chair and then a chair. So I'm good with face. I don't do the spreadsheets, but I've always heard that they're always incredibly helpful and willing to support you no matter what your questions are. Lewis, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I would say there's another thing. Like a lot of people prefer mailing the PCRs, and if they do request that, do that. But a big saving and expense and logistics is also using email to send the PCRs back to people. So if they have an email address, especially if you use ActBlue or something like that, that's how I was able to handle the hundreds of things for my special election. So just an idea for people to help save expense and logistics.
No, that's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for that. Anyone else have any questions? Don't be shy. All right, hearing no questions, I will give you back the last 20 minutes of your. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, my dim sum like a clown. Hold on. Here we go. Hey, that's all right. I'm still more professional than the Lyon County Republicans. Hi, Garrett Romble. Good time, Gary. I work on the Gosberg campaign unofficially and also unofficially on the Melissa Martins and Tara Gilliam campaign. I guess my question is, I see a lot of DFL chairs in different Senate districts. How do I know who mine is in my area? Because so far I've made the acquaintance of my local DFL chair. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Like I met with the Morrison County DFL, but I'm not sure if there's overlap in that, given that it's a smaller area. But your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm going to drop a link here to Poll Finder through the Secretary of State. If you type in your address, you'll get your Senate district, and then you can cross-reference that with the state party website. They have a page, I think it's, let me, dfl.org/local units, I believe will get you there. Um, and they have contact information for all the local units listed. Otherwise, your congressional district website may also be helpful. That chair would be more than willing to plug you in, I'm sure. And that would probably be a good place to start.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Chantal, can I add answer
Yeah.
that too? Definitely work with if you have any issues or any questions, the next level is your the congressional district level. Like Chantel, they have connections. She has connections. Uh, that's how you're going to correct some things that might be wonky on the system. That happened to me 2 years ago. So definitely don't hesitate to ask questions to the people you can get a hold of. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have questions? Oh yeah, Connie, go ahead.
Hi, I'm the secretary of the Douglas County DFL, and I was here to learn what we could. I just had a question about Jim Parsons' talk. Um, was he talking about Senate district funds or local, his local unit funds when he was talking about helping fund a campaign?
First of all, let me just say that it's good that you have questions about me because I have questions about myself all the time. But and so does my wife for that matter. But anyway, so at least in our situation, the operating unit and Senate district are one and the same,
Okay.
if that helps. Um, I'm not entirely familiar with what your situation is, or if there's a specific question that you had on some of the things I had talked
Are you
about.
referring to the county unit Senate district divide?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, yes. So I wasn't sure. So Douglas County has our own DFL, and then we are part of CD7
Right.
congressional district, and then SD12 B.
Okay.
So that's what I was getting confused about. I didn't know if you were talking about state funds or district funds or local funds when you were talking about funding a candidate.
When I was talking about, actually, I was talking about all of the above.
Okay.
When I have the dollar limit of 10,000 per
Okay.
candidate, that's from all DFL committee and organizational resources. It can come from one operating unit, or it can come from any one of three or four.
Okay. Thank you so much. That clears it up.
Okay.
Policy, you got your hand up?
It was just to follow on with that. I do think that you could, as a candidate, especially if you're a state rep or state senate candidate, your primary source of party money is probably going to come from your local unit, if it's a county unit, because that really is their mandate, is to recruit and support those candidates. At the congressional district level, like where Chantel sits, their mandate is to support whoever the congress person going to run for Congress. That doesn't mean that they can't give you some money too. I sit down in CD2 and we do give a little money to some of the state rep candidates, but we primarily give to whoever is going to run for our congressional seat. So I would say the expectation is the money's going to come from the county unit and not from the CD or even the yeah. Anyway, but it all depends. They could, and to the point that you can only take 10K from all sources.
Thank you so much for clarifying that one. Anyone else? Oh, I see M has a hand raised.
She's still muted, or that person's still muted.
Hello, can people hear me?
Yep.
There you
Yeah,
go.
hi. Maybe my name is wrong. This is Brandon Van Dover. I'm running for SD27. My question is, if you've exhausted like the people that you know who could be like a campaign treasurer, are there any resources to finding somebody who would want to be treasurer?
Those are always really hard. Lewis, do you have anything to weigh in? I see you have your hand up, or is yours unrelated and I should wait?
No, but I can weigh in on this
Okay.
because it's twofold.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's an actual that and campaign managers. Number one hardest one to find is a treasurer. Number two is a campaign manager.
Mhm.
And I've been working for about 2 years now trying to come up with like a pipeline for statewide for people to that are interested in helping out campaigns to be say like, hey, I'm willing to do it. I have had the Senate caucus now has a treasurer that's willing to do training for Senate caucus treasurers. So for people within the Senate caucus running for Senate, please let the Senate caucus know you have somebody. Other than that, it hasn't been developed yet. It's still something we want to work on. The main thing is just try to get volunteers for anything and everything and see if somebody within those volunteers are willing to step up and help you do the treasurer element and kind of build from there. But it's messy. It's not great, but that's kind of where we are right now because we're in the final stretch here.
Okay.
Chantel, say it wrong.
No,
And
honestly, that's totally accurate.
and I threw my hat in the ring a little late here, so I'm playing catch up. Is there any and I even like a minimal amount, is there any way to get some seed money to start your campaign, get some literature, pay for web hosting, things like that? That could be gotten, rapidly. And I mean, I'm not talking like great amounts, but I mean, a couple bucks would help out.
I check in with your local unit, to be honest. I'm pretty sure 27 actually meets next week in terms of timing,
Mm-hmm.
and see if they'd be willing to help you out. Otherwise, what I've had really good luck with fundraising is just making a post on social media and being like, "Hey, I'm running. It's great. I need $1,000."
Mm-hmm.
And having a very specific and particular ask is often a really good way to get that money. I also do a lot of emailing with Action Network, and I will never come out empty-handed with that money. And with a district as small as yours, you're talking under $50 a month to email all the strong and lean Democrats in your district, I'd bet.
Mm-hmm.
And so you should be able to reach out and be like, "Hey, I'm your candidate and I need money." But kind of getting in the rhythm and getting comfortable asking for money is always really hard for new candidates. So you are not alone. Or
Yeah.
or you could also see if there's I would check in with your chair and see too if there's a someone who really likes to fund these campaigns that you should be getting connected with. They often have institutional knowledge about who might be a donor or who might be interested in getting involved more. Sam, I see you have
Oh,
your hand
oh
raised.
yeah. So also just to go back to the looking for volunteers to help with campaigns, our friend CC McNair, who's the president of the Minnesota College Democrats, is putting together a list of campaigns that are looking for postings, both volunteer and paid positions. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out. I have my phone number and email, and I can get you added to that list. I know we've already got some CD6 candidates on there. So that list will be distributed to the College Democrats Network, all those local chapters. So when folks, are coming home for the summer, there's a lot of folks who are looking for, those resume builders, those internships type things. So that's a good resource there too. So just feel free to reach out if you have any questions about that.
Let's see, looking over to the chat for questions. Oh, someone's wondering too, how do we go about setting up a fundraiser event? Any of the panelists want to weigh in, or do you want me to give a stab at it?
Well, having done about 1 million fundraisers at my house, I would just say you need to find a location. And I love having fundraisers at people's houses because the cost of a house fundraiser is zero. And then one of the things that is really helpful is to have a lot of people help with the fundraiser. So you ask people to bring a bottle of wine or to bring some brownies or bring some appetizers or that sort of thing, because when they're helping, then they have a reason that they have to be there. And the other thing that I would suggest, and this is just something to consider, is to have sponsors for your fundraiser. So have some people who may or may not be there, but they've already promised up front to give a larger amount to be listed as a sponsor on whatever you're sending out for your fundraiser. I have had fundraisers for our down ballot candidates like Steve Simon and Julie Blaha and raised $8,000 at my house because I had sponsors and I had people, a lot of people were there, but a lot of people, whether they were there or not, were at a higher level than they would just normally give at a house party. They were sponsors. If you don't have any friends who have a house suitable for that, look for, a lot of our breweries are always looking for reasons to have people there. They may have some extra spaces. Uh, but I really think the best thing about fundraising is making your costs low and your income high because at the end of the day, you don't want something that's more expensive than what you raise. So I would work on house parties to get you started. And, just ask the officers of your Senate district to get you to see what they can do to get you started.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Betsy. I knew I could get you there, but I figured you probably had better knowledge than I did.
Yeah, can I
So,
just jump in
yeah,
just as on that as well?
yeah.
So the events are good. Also, like I think the call time and the calling people and asking for donations is ultimately like you have to do that. And so it's important that you're upfront with the candidate that's going to be part of it is making phone calls too.
Fabulous. Getting back to the chat, there's a treasurer question. So after midterm elections this November, win or lose, what happens with the leftover money? Do we keep it in case the candidate runs again in the future?
You want me to take that?
I,
Yeah, yeah.
I,
Let's start with Buzz and
when,
then we'll
yeah.
take Joe.
Oh, leftover money that in a candidate's treasury, there's a broad latitude to retain that money, to retain options about using it to future campaigns. You have no obligation to dispose of that money immediately. I think you can keep it for several years. I'm not sure what the guidelines are in state law, but uh, or you can do such things as donate it to qualified charities if you wish. You can return it back to your organizing unit uh, for their use in as a party or for future candidates' use in the next cycle. There is a number of ways that that money can be either disposed of, but there's no urgency to dispose of it. But if you need guidelines to make sure you're not, it can never be used for personal use. But there are options to donate it either to a party unit or to another candidate at the next cycle, or to qualified charities. That's about all I know about that.
Joe, got anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just mention what I did. What Buzz said, I donated it. I was not planning on running for anything in the short term. That was 6 years ago. I didn't have a ton of money left in there anyways. And at the time, if you remember the long ago time of COVID and the George Floyd uprisings, there was plenty of good opportunities for that money to go to good help in the community. Do I kind of wish I had that money today as some seed? Yes. So just keep that in mind. It's not the worst to leave it in accounts. I can think of several candidates who have not closed out their campaigns from 10 years ago. We have a commissioner in Stearns County that has done that, for example. Still legal, state knows, state's updated, and it's always a just in case. So I would say leave it until you're absolutely definitive because I kind of wish I had that few $100 today.
Yeah, when I ran for school board in 2022, I got my butt kicked in a primary. And I also donated to a nonprofit that was near and dear to my heart and closed out the account. And that $1,600 was great. It was used to help support children with disabilities get access to equipment that their insurance didn't cover. absolutely love that I was able to take a thing that was very emotional and ended up devastating and turn it into something good. But that also means that I now don't have that money if I decide to run again. So I agree with Joe. Maybe sit on it, do your year-end report, and see where it goes, and then make a call. You know, some of us will run more than once. Some of us won't. And all versions are good. Lewis, you got anything?
My mind got reminded when somebody said Max contributed like 10,000. So when people are going around trying to fill out endorsements, some of these endorsement processes will take up an exorbitant amount of time for filling out questionnaires. There'll also be scheduling conflicts. You need to prioritize what's important for endorsements for your time frame. And unless it has money or votes tied to it, unless it, you need to know that it's probably not as high a priority as what you're thinking. So just an FYI, that also contributes to like the maximum that your Senate district can contribute to you or your House district, however you want to word it. But yeah, just an FYI. Endorsements are the end all be all. Prioritize which ones are important. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. Betsy, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, well, first of all, I do want to say something about something that Lewis just said. I was at a candidate forum and my opponent said, she was just spending all this time answering all these questionnaires, and she was obviously a new candidate. And the question came up, did you fill out, and it was some pro-life groups candidate forum, and or, pro-life groups questionnaire. And I said, absolutely not. I have been knocking on doors and I am running to represent you, not some special interest group in St. Paul. And that was the end of that. And my opponent was shocked that she didn't have to actually answer every single questionnaire. You don't. But in the thought about having money left over from your campaign, if you're going to transfer it to a successive campaign, make sure that it is a successive campaign that you can transfer to. For instance, if somebody's running for Congress, they can move money to their US Senate campaign. But if you are running for the House of Representatives, I don't think that it is legal for you to transfer that money to your city council race. I think you need to either give it to you can give it to a charity, a 501c3 public charity. You can give it back to your Senate district, or you can give it to another candidate who is running in a state race. So state Senate, state House, governor, any of those things. But I would definitely look at who you can legally give that money to when you're closing out your account, because I don't think you can just give it to any candidate. If you're in like a House or a Senate race, you can give it to another House or Senate candidate to close out your account. But by the way, you can't just give out money to a House or Senate candidate and then leave your House account open. You need to close it that year. And so there are some rules about who you can give money to and when to close things out. And I do think that the comments about looking at the campaign finance board information or calling them if you have a question are really the best way to go. Don't get in trouble with that final $1,600 that you have, because once it's gone, it's gone. And then you find out that, oh, that was the wrong thing to do.
No, thank you so much for that, Betsy, because sometimes those fines are more than the benefit that you would have had if the amount was that small. Jim, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, just a quick thing to get back to the original question, I think, basically is startup funds. I don't think anybody mentioned that you can actually loan your campaign money from your own resources, if that's a possibility. That's not for everybody, obviously, but it is something there.
Awesome. No, thank you so much for that too, Jim. Um, Anyone else got anything? All
I
right.
would offer some dim sum, but I ate it all.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Well, with that, thank you all so much for coming on tonight. I'm gonna stop the recording here. But feel free to go